Good morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. The Standing Committee on General Government is meeting to consider Bill 156, an act to protect Ontario's farms and farm animals from trespassers and other forms of interference and to prevent contamination of Ontario's food supply. Today's proceedings will be available on the Legislative Assembly's website and television channel. We have the following members in the room: MPP Mike Harris, and that's it for now. And the following members are participating remotely. We have MPP Glover, MPP Cramp, MPP Schreiner, MPP Barrett, MPP Pettipies, MPP Smith, Peterborough Kawartha, MPP Vanthof, and we have a new addition on Zoom. This is for MPP Bailey. Can you please confirm that you are present and that you are MPP Bob Bailey?
Present.
Can you confirm whether you are currently in Ontario?
Yes.
Thank you, MPP Bailey. We are also joined by staff from Legislative Research, Hansard Interpretation, and Broadcast and Recording. To make sure that everyone can understand what is going on, it is important that all participants speak slowly and clearly. Please wait until I recognize you before starting to speak. Since it could take a little time for your audio and video to come up after I recognize you, please take a brief pause before beginning. As always, all comments by members and witnesses should go through the chair. Our first item of business is the report of the Subcommittee on Committee Business, which was previously sent to the committee. Pursuant to the order of the House dated June 2, 2020, the Subcommittee has the authority to otherwise determine how to proceed with the bill. The committee will not need to vote on this report, but I will read it into the record to make sure all members are aware of the contents. Your Subcommittee on Committee Business met on June 3, 2020 to consider the method of proceeding on Bill 156, an act to protect Ontario's farms and farm animals from trespassers and other forms of interference and to prevent contamination of Ontario's food supply, and determined the following. 1. That witnesses be scheduled in groups of 3 for each 1-hour time slot, with 7 minutes each for their presentations and 38.5 minutes for questioning for all 3 witnesses, divided into 2 rounds of 8 minutes for each of the government and the official opposition, and 1 round of 6.5 minutes for the independent members as a group. 2. That witnesses be arranged into groups of 3 chronologically, based on the order their requests to appear were submitted. 3, that the research officer provide the committee with a summary of witness presentations as soon as possible. 4, that all witnesses appear remotely by Zoom or by teleconference. 5, that all submissions and committee documents be distributed electronically to all members and staff for the committee. Are there any questions before we begin? Seeing none, we'll continue. Oh, your hand was outside of the screen there. I recognize you, MPP Vanthof.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make one comment that we agreed in the subcommittee to have people appear by 3s because the government is looking to experiment with something similar to the federal government, but it will be interesting to see how it's perceived by the witnesses because it may leave some witnesses with feeling that they weren't heard. Thank you.
Thank you, MPP Vanthof. Any other questions? MPP Smith?
Just a comment on that, that by having presentations of 3 people, we can fit more people in. More people have a voice.
Before I recognize you, MPP Vanthof, I'd like to remind all members that this is a time for questions and not for comments. So, MPP Vanthof, do you have a question? Is that a no? Can we unmute MPP Vanthof, please?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. MPP Bailey, I see you have raised your hand.
Yes, I can hear the speakers like Vanthof and Smith, but I can't hardly hear you, Madam Chair. So I don't know whether your mic's not on or something. Anyway, I can hear the other 2 speakers that just went before you, but it's very, very difficult to hear you.
I will move my microphone closer. Is that better?
That's better. That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions? All right. Our witnesses today have been grouped in threes for each 1 hour time slot. Each witness will have 7 minutes for their presentation, and after we have heard from all three witnesses, the remaining 38.5 minutes of the time slot will be for questions from committee members. This time for questions will be broken down into 2 rounds of 8 minutes for each of the government, the opposition, and 1 round of 6.5 minutes for the independent members as a group. Oh, my apologies. I already read that. I'll now call upon our first group of witnesses. From Toronto PigSafe, we have Anita Crank. My apologies if I mispronounced that. From Centennial Carriages, Inc., we have Laura Centennial, and we have Janet Fraser. You have the floor.
Hi, would you like me to present first?
Yes, we'll begin with Anita.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take a few moments to acknowledge my white privilege. It's defined as being able to go about your daily work and life successes and tribulations without the added burden of experiencing systemic racism and exploitation. For example, the documentary called 13th, which I watched on YouTube this weekend, shows how systemic racism has been deliberate and planned and put to use for the economic and political gain of the ruling classes against our Black and brown brothers and sisters. We all have an obligation to stand up, listen, and act as allies and stop the cycle of exploitation, violence, and injustice. It's heartening to see how many are standing up now, and the Animal Safe Movement, the group which I represent, is humbled to use our platforms to listen, learn, and act in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. My biography. I hold a PhD in political science from the University of Toronto. Years ago, I taught at McMaster and Queen's courses on social movement strategy and tactics, economic globalization, qualitative research methods, Canadian politics, environmental sociology, and other topics. I started as a peace and environmental activist and participated in civil disobedience with Friends of Clackwood Sound and Greenpeace in the 1990s to protect old-growth rainforests in British Columbia. Now I'm a full-time organizer with Animal Safe Movement, a worldwide organization with 1,000 chapters in over 70 countries. 10 years ago, Mr. Bean, my dog, and I founded the first chapter called Toronto PigSafe. Many of you may have encountered us on what we dubbed Pig Island, a traffic island at Strawn and Lakeshore in downtown Toronto, to raise awareness of the 30 transport trucks carrying 6,000 pigs to quality meat packers. We held our vigils from 2011 to April 2014 when Quality Meat Packers went bankrupt. We now hold vigils at Toronto's cow slaughterhouses, at St. Helens and Maple Leaf Chicken Slaughterhouse, both blocks away from St. Clair and Keele in Toronto. We also hold pig vigils at Canada's largest pig slaughterhouse called Fearman's in Burlington. I was inspired by Leo Tolstoy, Mahatma Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Saul Alinsky, Lois Gibbs, among other love-based community organizers when we formed our first Toronto PigSafe chapter. We use the following main strategies: bearing witness. Bill 156 attempts to criminalize this historic ethical method. 2, love-based community organizing. 3, vegan outreach. More recently, we added 3 other chapters to our Animal Safe Movement: Climate Safe Movement, Health Safe Movement, Youth Climate Safe. Youth Climate Safe is run by a 13-year-old African-American organizer, Genesis Butler. She is related to Cesar Chavez. Follow her on Instagram at Youth Climate Safe and Genesis Butler. She has over 55,000 followers. We now have 61 chapters in 20 countries of Youth Climate Safe. In 2015, I was charged with criminal mischief for giving water to thirsty pigs, and then acquitted with the great work of my 2 prominent and well-established criminal lawyers, James Silver and Gary Grill, both of whom are vegan. We fought and failed to get pigs recognized as persons under the law instead of the demeaning property these intelligent, sentient beings are referred to in order to enable us to slaughter them. We succeeded in showing compassion is not a crime. That is, following the golden rule, giving water to a thirsty animal. Bill 156 attempts to overturn this just ruling. I'd like to address 6 areas: moral, environmental, health, economic, political, and legal. First, the moral. We all have a moral duty to bear witness. Leo Tolstoy defined bearing witness as not looking away from suffering creatures, but coming close and trying to help. At animal vigils in front of slaughterhouses, we face the animals. We look them in the eyes and see their scared, innocent souls. We see how dirty they are. We experience the smell. We hear the industrial sounds. They hear more acutely. Our physical presence is a moral duty similar to the Quakers and Greenpeace protesting atmospheric nuclear tests more than 50 years ago. Facing a midlife crisis at 50, Leo Tolstoy was suicidal. In the 1870s, he found a solution. He needed to align his actions with his beliefs. For the next 32 years of his life, he started taking actions including no longer sports hunting, calling it an evil pastime, becoming an ethical vegetarian, an active anti-imperialist, a pacifist standing up for conscientious objectors, and human rights advocate defending persecuted religious minorities in Russia. Do not believe in words, yours or others. Believe in deeds, he said. We all share a duty to bear witness to animals in slaughterhouses in our communities. I invite each and every one of you to join Toronto Cow Save and Toronto Pig Save at our weekly vigils. At slaughterhouse vigils, you see scared and terrified animals who don't want to die. At sanctuaries, you see the opposite. At the pig preserve, Richard Hoyle, a former Marine, has 170 pigs roaming free on 100 acres in Tennessee. The pigs form their own social groupings, not so much organized in terms of type, age, or size, but in terms of their personality and disposition. They roam the entire sanctuary in a day, foraging for blackberries, grass, walnuts, persimmons, and other foods. The pigs hate being confined. Sound familiar? The pigs smell like plants. Esther the Wonder Pig, who's a celebrity pig living in Campbellville, smells like maple syrup. Our beloved dogs smell like corn chips. Pigs in factory farms and transport trucks smell horrible and sickly. Dario Fo, an Italian Nobel laureate and playwright, writes in his book, that is what happens to them when they're locked up, animals in captivity, forced to live in a cage. That's what makes them smell like that. Normally, freedom has no stench. When they are at liberty in the forest, they certainly do not smell that way. Those of us who have been in quarantine now have an inkling of an idea of what animals experience. We need to end animal agriculture for the sake of these innocent animals and transition to a...
You have 1 minute left.
In terms of the environment, Al Gore is vegan. Dr. James Hansen, the world's top climate scientist, is vegan. Greta Thunberg said, I am vegan for ethical, environmental, and climate reasons. In terms of health, as of June 4, there have been 20,400 reported positive cases tying meat packing facilities to workers testing positive, and over 74 reported deaths in the US. In Canada, there have been a number of deaths. In terms of economics, Jim Cramer of CNBC says going against Beyond Meat is going against history. He says Beyond Meat is an answer to the pandemic. It's not a hobby. The hobby is going to end up being meat. In terms of what this committee needs to do, I think morally, we need to not only do the right thing and transition to a plant-based diet, but also we should not be hiding the truth. And I think Bill 156 is aimed at hiding the truth.
Thank you very much. That's the time that you have. We'll now turn to our second scheduled witness or presenter, Laura Centennial. Laura, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Myself, along with my husband and our family, are owners of Centennial Carriages in Niagara-on-the-Lake. We have been operating horse and carriage services in the Niagara region for the past 27 years. Our business consists of tours on the streets of Niagara-on-the-Lake. We also provide horse-drawn carriages for weddings, funerals, parade, film, and television. We take pride in the care and condition and training of our horses. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you a snapshot of my living reality with animal rights activists. June 3rd, I received a messenger notification from a friend, an Instagram post from @War4Animals Niagara, in response to one of our fun little posts. It reads as follows. This is the actual post. This is a screenshot. Hashtag @War4Animals Niagara. Jason King. Company operating in Niagara-on-the-Lake must be hurting financially. This may be a joke, but it's very telling that they are thinking of other ways to exploit and use horses to generate profits while they cannot put them out on the streets. Why the hell can't they just stop thinking of horses as machines to work for humans as slaves? Be sure to join us when they hit them hard. Protests immediately upon the return to the streets of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Be ready. While we wait, we are designing new posters, crafting new tactics, and planning for more actions to up the pressure. Even in the middle of this pandemic, under lockdown, it continues. Right now, my family and our horses are fine. We are all here at the farm enjoying the moderate security and safety of being here. For all farmers, we included, life has maintained its usual rhythm, and the realities of life stay safely at the outer edges. We take care of our horses, our farm, and each other. Sorry. We plan and prepare to restart our business as resources run low. Hoping it will be sooner or later. I'm so sorry.
Would you like a few moments?
I'm soldiering on. Then something as simple as this brings it all back and the reality hits hard. If we can make it through this with our health and a few groceries remaining, at war we'll be waiting. This is not new. For 3 years, we have endured, we have carried on. We have explored every option and avenue that we assumed and imagined we might have had to protect our horses, our staff, our guests, our family, our lives, and our livelihood. There is nothing. I do not really worry about the grandstanding and the chest pounding, sticks and stones, if you will. What keeps me awake at night is the thinly veiled, carefully crafted threats of destruction, the pure hatred, potential violence, and harm to everything I hold dear. Now we have at war's latest manifesto and rallying cry. Now what? Based on past experiences, there is no limit to the possibilities of at war's dedication to destroy our business, my family, and our reality that once we leave the farm, we have no protection. The police have told me there is nothing we can do, over and over and over again. I don't even call them anymore. We are completely and absolutely on our own. We are farmers. Horse and carriage services is our market product. This makes us a prime target in public, on the streets, for radical AR people far and wide. This is our last avenue. We cannot continue in the same vein with an abundance of sympathy and support from our community, businesses, our Lord Mayor and Council, but no legislative protection. As other protective measures are introduced through Bill 156, we and our family become an even larger target. I would never move to interfere with anyone's charter rights. However, when the charter is used as a shield to allow behavior that would otherwise never be accepted or unchallenged, unbalanced, nullifying our same rights. I sincerely hope that our situation is considered as the bill moves forward, that a balance can be restored. My desire is to be able to know that my staff, my family, and horses will be safe in our workplace. I thank you so very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I understand that we have Janet Fraser on the line. Janet, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Could you please state your name for the record, and you may begin. You'll have 7 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Janet Fraser. I'd like to begin by thanking the committee for allowing me to join today. While I have no special knowledge related to farming or Bill 156, I do think that my reactions and my feelings are likely representative of the feelings of a large number of Canadians and members of the general public. I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not. Hello, am I still there?
Yes, we're listening.
Oh, sorry. My screen just went blank for some reason. I'm not a member of an activist group, but I did participate briefly for a period of several months, perhaps 8 years ago, in an activist group. What I learned about farming in that time was that it was very different from the images that I had come to believe that farming was. It was shocking to find out some of the truths that do have to go on in order to, I guess, provide the food supply to the large population. But I was actually grateful for the opportunity that the activists provided in learning some of the truths behind farming. And I think that activists, unfortunately, have had to turn to some acts that are deemed as trespass or other in order to expose some of the cruelties and the abuses that go on in the farming industry. I also, just to tag on to the previous speaker, I certainly recognize there are differences between industrial farming and private farming. And I also am aware that some of what I say is debatable, but just again, as a general member of the public, I am deeply concerned about the possibility of Bill 156 passing as it stands now. I strongly believe that we all have a right to transparency related to our food supply system, and this bill leaves me wondering why there would be opposition to block the exposure of abuses and cruelties that can potentially take place within industrial or private farm settings. It seems to me that this bill is seeking to punish those who seek to bring comfort and protection to living sentient beings. I can't help but wonder if trespass is the right term. When I Googled the proper definition, it includes terms such as unlawfully entering the land of another or an intentional interference with chattel, etc. So I think, although I didn't hear the entire first presentation, the previous to me, I think that the activities of animal activists are to meet an unmet need in terms of exposing and ideally preventing animal cruelties. And I think because we don't have mechanisms in place that seem sufficient in doing that, it does lead to people having to enter the land of another. I heard the first speaker previous to me make reference to balance, and I can't help but wonder if we can't find a balance to meet the needs of those who want to expose and prevent cruelties, along with protections for property owners. It seems that's the missing piece here, and I can't help but think there could be other ways of doing this or other options. As an example, perhaps a coalition of both activists and I guess government structures that can oversee this. But anyway, I'm digressing from what I wrote. So it seems to me, though, as just a general member of the public today, that Bill 156 is based on some flawed logics. It seems that it is presupposing that current farming and transportation is humane and does provide for biosecurity. Yet there's an avalanche of information available now on the web that shows us that this ethical treatment isn't necessarily a given. And so I do apologize to those who are providing ethical treatments, but the fact that there are still horrific abuses taking place is even in fact sometimes with what's deemed as being acceptable, like to a general member of the public, it was shocking. So during my brief period of activism, coming to learn and to hear the screams of pigs as they're being prodded with electrical prods to make their way into the slaughterhouse, or the fact that chickens are kept in cages and specifically bred to a certain size in order to fit into ovens, or the amounts of water being provided are calculated according to cost. So I realize that we are limited in time today and that there's many factors at play. But again, I'm speaking just as a general member of the public and my perception.
You have 1 minute left, Janet.
Oh gosh, okay. I want to say that we need the activists to ensure that the industry is not left to push boundaries to the limit in terms of abuses that do take place. I don't think that the trespassers are the wrongdoers. I think that there are those out there that are true wrongdoers. I also am concerned about the origins of the bill. I understand that it was prepared by Ernie Hardiman and that his nephew, John, an NDP.
John Vantoff.
Thank you. I gather that he is a dairy farmer. So I'm just wondering about some of those connections, you know, in terms of a bill being written by those who are in farming to benefit the farming industry. So because of time, I just wanted to say if Bill 156 is allowed to pass as it stands, it scares me. I think it's a precedent to punish whistleblowers.
Thank you,
in other
Janet.
sectors.
Sorry, my apologies to cut you off. That's 7 minutes.
That's okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. This round of questions will now start with the official opposition. As previously indicated, you will have 8 minutes for your time. Would you like me to provide you a 4-minute mark as well, or would you just like the 1 minute prior to your time is up? MPP Vantoff, you have the floor.
The 1 minute is fine. Thank you.
You may begin.
I'd like to thank all three presenters for taking some time this morning, and for Janet specifically. I am the John Vantoff of which you speak, and my uncle is the Minister of Agriculture, but we have some deep divisions on this bill. So just for your comfort, I would, listening to all three presentations, I would say that it shows how difficult an issue this actually is, and how much emotion there is, and everyone's coming from their position. The question, and there's several parts in this bill. Everyone's talking about the trespass, and I want to ask about that. But there's also the issue about getting into a facility under false pretenses, and that's a very touchy part of this bill. But for all three of you, I'd like all. Do you believe that farm facilities, processing facilities, should be protected by some type of trespass act? And perhaps Anita could take it first.
I think we already have existing laws, trespassing laws. I don't think we need any additional ag bill. So I'm perfectly happy with the existing system. You know, in my testimony, I mentioned how pigs are in a natural setting. They roam 100 acres, forage, they love it, they hate confinement. In our factory farm system, pigs, mother sows can't even turn around. Now, we've all faced confinement because of the coronavirus. Can you imagine being in one spot, not being able to turn around? And these pigs have the intelligence of 4-year-old creatures. So they're brave activists that just show these conditions of these victims. And I think it's absolutely essential that we do it. It's called, meet the victims, or just like let people see, because people would not support this if they saw what was happening to these intelligent creatures. Would you put a dog in a crate for months, and the dog not being allowed to turn around, and then forcibly impregnating the dog, and then taking their babies away, and then doing this in a repeated cycle? This is today's farming, and it's unethical, and it's also destroying the climate, and it's hurting our health. It's processed meat is a group 1 carcinogen according to WHO. So it's insanity. Our current system is insanity. Our house is on fire, says Greta, and animal agriculture is one of the big reasons. So
Okay.
We need the opposite of Bill 156.
Laura?
Hi, thank you. Although what we're doing has nothing to do with food production. So I really can't speak on that particular issue, except to say I have several friends in the area that have small little farms, and the animals are treated better than I am. In our case, we do, up until this point in time, our farm was always open for anybody who wanted to come in with pleasure. Now we have to be a little more diligent and a little more careful, because my experience and my reality is that there are people out there who, although they say they're there for the horses, I've also been told that they would love to see them go to slaughter. Going to slaughter would be better for them than the life we give them. So under, that pretense, yeah, I feel that farmers, their life is invested in everything, and they should be protected from people who are not always thoroughly educated on the subject, that go more with feelings and facts. And it's our property. This is, we pay the taxes, we pay the mortgages, we pay the bills. We should be able to maintain some reasonable control over it.
Janet?
Did you say Janet?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So I guess in order to also, consider the response of the property owner, it just seems to me that there's such a difference though between the small individual farmers and some of the bigger industrial complexes, where you may not necessarily have the mechanisms in place to ensure protection from those that would abuse the animals. I think that as a whole, the system is sort of missing the sort of ability to monitor some of those bigger industrial settings, and so again, because I'm not as well informed probably as a lot of committee members, but as an outsider, it just seems to me that there's a glaring gap in the system, and it is, I think that there may be other ways of protecting property owners, but also balancing the need for protections for the animals. Like, I can't help but wonder if there were other things that were considered, like coalitions of both activists and government inspectors. I don't know how to articulate it, and I'm aware of the time, but I just wonder if there's other ways to address the what is deemed trespass. And again, I think, trying to blanket everything under just farming, when there probably are big differences between conditions like our previous speaker, like small farmers or horse farmers, not food production. But I think when it comes to food production, I'm just not sure that Bill 156 is the answer, and I don't know much about what other options are in place or have been considered. I'm sorry, that's not a good answer.
That's fine. Bill, I guess the ultimate, if this bill reaches its objectives, there will be less participation from the public. Certainly, where there are those who say that this will also be an impediment to, let's say, an
You have 1 minute left, MPP.
Investigative reporter coming into a plant. Quick yes or no, given what we've seen since COVID, do the three of you have faith that government or industry inspections are enough to protect the public and protect the animals?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Is it my turn? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, the short answer is no. I do not have faith that the government has enough mechanisms in place. I'm all for investigative reporting around industrial farm conditions, because I think this is the only way that we can learn about what actually is going on. And no, I don't have faith. No.
Thank you. That concludes this round of questioning. I know that normally I ask members and witnesses to make their comments through the chair. Given the technological limitations here today, I am prepared to be a little bit lenient. So I would just ask members when you are asking your question to please include at the end of the question who you are directing that question to, just so that we are able to properly move forward and get the right people to answer that. We'll now turn to the independent members. You have 6.5 minutes. MPP Schreiner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And I really want to sincerely thank all three of the presenters for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of these important hearings. And I think one of the things I've heard in the conversation leading up to these committee hearings is, and I felt that it was reflected a lot in the three presentations, is can we find some balance? There's some on one extreme that is like, no reporting on animal agriculture. There's other people on the extreme of like all animal agriculture should be eliminated. And how do we find a balance that protects the private property rights and safeties of farmers with also ensuring that we have proper oversight around animal welfare issues? And so the three of you, I think, actually in your own different ways spoke to a lot of those concerns that are being expressed. So Laura, I want to direct my first question through the chair to you, that you read some material in your presentation, and I'm wondering if that feeling obviously was very emotional for you, if that feeling or I guess if those comments are mostly directed through like social media and those types of ways, or are you experiencing those types of comments like on your private property at your farm?
Who was that question directed at, MPP Schreiner?
To Laura from Sentinel.
Thank you. Laura?
Oh, thank you. Honestly, we haven't really had any confrontations at our farm. And in a lot of ways, I would much prefer that. It would be easier to manage. The social media aspect of it, quite honestly, I don't pay much attention to. It's just social media. Our biggest experience with the derogatory comments is literally face-to-face on the streets as we're working, between myself, every member of my family, all of our staff, even local people who don't particularly agree with what the protesters are saying. And, our community has really embraced us and feels very protective of us and our horses. So people do become quite upset when they see them, and it's not really the seeing them. We found that the activists really try to provoke people. They're trying to set up that perfect scenario where somebody just has had enough and steps over the line. These types of things, trying to scare our horses, trying to wear down our employees. The wonderful people that we get to work with are our staff and employees, but they're more like extended family. The things they have had to put up and tolerate are just past the extreme of what anybody should be expected to deal with in the workplace. If you would like, I'm sort of ready here with a few statements if you don't mind the little added time, I'm happy to read you a typical statement from one of my drivers of their experience with the activists while they're out in Niagara-on-the-Lake and while they're trying to do their job.
Maybe one, if you don't mind, just quickly, because I want to make sure I have time to ask
I
other
would have a
witnesses.
really short one off the top of the pile. This is from a young girl, Abby Moran. She's about 20 years old, which is really typical. Young girls and horses, it's just a natural mix. To quote her, one day during one of their big operations, this will be the protesters, they had 10 plus big rental trucks and other cars driving all around Niagara-on-the-Lake. No matter what way I turned on our tour, there was a vehicle waiting for me. Even when I altered my normal route, they still found me. They would follow me and turn around when they saw me to make sure someone was driving in front and behind me the whole time. They would sometimes form a line in all their vehicles behind me too. This made me feel very uncomfortable, very unsafe, and my passengers were upset too. They were unsure what to do. They could throw something out the window to spook the horse, or they could drive recklessly and get too close to us. So many things they could have done while they were following me that day, which makes me feel so very unsafe. And there was nothing I could do to stop them. And while at the corner, there was a rest in between my tours. I had
MPP Schreiner, you have 1 minute left.
Laura, I'm sorry, I just have one more minute and I want to ask another witness a question. So thank you for that. Anita, I just wanted to quickly, and we only have a minute at this point, there's a lot of concern around people's charter rights being violated by parts of this bill. Do you feel like your charter rights would be violated?
Yes, I mean, we do vigils in front of slaughterhouses. We have the right to protest. This bill would try to eliminate that, and bearing witness is a moral duty. Quakers did it, Greenpeace did it. It's going to a site of injustice and trying to correct it. And I think this bill is unconstitutional.
Thank you for that. And Janet, I wanted to ask you the same question, though I may be running out of time.
I think that the activists are really seeking to address injustice. And again, you know,
My
I
apologies.
appreciate
That's all the time that we have for this round. We're now going to turn to the government. And MPP Smith, I believe you have some questions.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is for Laura. First off, it's actually a two-part question. You've got how many people are currently working for you? And secondly, when do you think it's appropriate that someone intimidates or scares your employees?
I have approximately in high season about 20 people, that's drivers and support staff. You know, I think if you are, like you see yourself now, if you are doing your job, you should be afforded a little bit of respect. In what we do, there's enough challenges. You're dealing with a 1-ton horse, a wonderful, super well-trained, very happy horse. You're dealing with traffic. You're dealing with your guests. And, you know, that's manageable. But when you throw in the intimidation, the derogatory comments, and you know, the vehicles following you and all sorts of the things that we've dealt with over the last 3 years, it makes it so incredibly difficult. I've actually had people who love their jobs have to quit because they were really suffering mental health issues because of it. And it follows when they're not working. They're followed on social media. And I had one young man be addressed as he looked like a wife beater, and he became the wife beater. You know, people are going to their job, a job that they enjoy doing, making a living, paying their bills, and to have this added pressure. And I mean, they're 2 feet from your face. And our people love the horses they work with. We pair them off, they're a team in every way of the term. And they're so afraid for their horses because they don't know what somebody is going to do. And it causes a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, MPP Harris.
Okay, MPP Barrett, I see that you noted you raised your hand. I will go to you after I recognize MPP Harris.
You can let Mr. Barrett.
No, it's okay. I just want to say that I'm noting everyone down. So MPP Harris.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody that is participating. It's kind of neat to have everybody here collectively from across the province. Laura, I've got a more of a statement. Was kind of hoping that maybe you could finish off reading maybe one more of some of your staff members, concerns that they've raised over the years. If we could maybe find something that could only maybe take a couple of minutes. I know that Mr. Barrett also has a question as well.
Okay, sure. So just launch into a statement here.
Please do, yes.
Okay. This is from Shay. My name is Shay Vandenberg. I'm a 15-year-old student at Eden High School. I've been employed with Centennial Carriages for 2 years. I had a very upsetting experience at work due to protesters in the old town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. This morning I arrived at the corner of King and Queen Street where the carriages are parked around 11 a.m. I was called into work early due to the presence of the protesters at the corner. As soon as I got dropped off at the corner, I immediately felt intimidated by the presence of the many protesters who were surrounding my work area, where I would normally stand to give horses water and help the drivers. Since I was not comfortable being there by myself, I went to the other drivers and went on an hour tour with her just to get out of there. So I think this sort of gives you the idea. This poor girl ended up calling me, and she was hysterical, and she is a tough young girl. Don't let 15 fool you. And she was very upset. I also have a letter from her mother, which she actually sent to the local paper and was printed as an editorial. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. And, I think it's very unfortunate that, we have to see people put into these types of circumstances and situations. I know it's certainly very tough for your employees, and just want to thank them for persevering and doing a good job and doing what's right. I'll release my time to Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, MPP Barrett. MPP Barrett, you have to unmute on your end. MPP Barrett, you'll have to unmute your microphone on your end. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee, and people at the witness table. I hope people are having more success with some of the technology than I am. I've got a person helping me here. That's why I was wearing the mask. Not that we apologize for wearing a mask these days. And again, the common ground, the commonality at the witness table, 3 deputants that have indicated their love for animals, that's people in Ontario. That's really, of anywhere in the world. All of us have a love for animals, working animals, pets, and what have you. Controversy will be on these committee hearings for several days. Very, very interesting stuff, and stuff that's not really adequately being resolved on social media or being resolved out on the street or on somebody's property. Hence the opportunity for all of us to discuss this before this standing committee representing a number of policies representing different directions. I want to go back to the question that has been raised, and I'll open it up to anyone at the witness table, perhaps someone who hasn't spoken yet. How do we strike a balance? We have the existing Trespass to Property Act. Several sides have indicated that hasn't been adequate. we have new legislation before us, and I know we're short on time. Just some comments on how can we strike some more balance. We have government for a reason. We have this committee for a reason, and as was indicated, there can be extremes on all sides. How do we strike that balance? And I'll just turn that up over to, I suppose, at the direction of the chair, whoever jumps in
I have
first.
1 minute left.
Thank you.
Who was your question? Was it directed to Laura, MPP Barrett?
No, whoever maybe hasn't had a chance to speak, maybe
Oh,
make.
may I?
Yes.
May I?
Laura?
Okay. May I?
Oh, sorry, Janet, my apologies. Yes,
Thank
have the
you.
floor.
Okay, I would like to actually be the one to answer that, because I think right now Bill 156 is looking to address these issues from a very specific perspective. But I think, though, addressing the rights and the well-being of living sentient creatures and protecting their rights would in turn reduce
My
the
apologies, Janet. I have to cut you off. This round of questioning for the government side is over. Now, before we proceed, we are running a little bit behind, and we have a little flexibility with time. However, we do have to end straight at noon because of the the House order. So my question to the committee is, we have about 10 minutes left for this. Each of you have 8 minutes left, but we have about 10 minutes left until 11 o'clock. Would you prefer to have the 8 minutes each and cut short the next round, or would you prefer to just cut it short now and have 5 minutes each? I'll leave it at the discretion of the committee. If you want to just do questioning for 5 minutes here and then go to the next one, 5 minutes? 5 minutes each and then just next one? You want to cut the next one short? Okay, Mr. Banthoff says no. Oh, you're okay with that? Yes, okay, thank you. So in that case, then we'll go back to the official opposition. You have 8 minutes. Who would like to begin this round of questioning? Please raise your hand. All right, MPP Glover, you have the floor.
Okay, my first question is for Laura. Laura, what you've been experiencing it sounds more like harassment than trespass, because you said the actions haven't taken place on your farm, they've actually taken place on the street. When you phone the police, have they said anything? Like, we do have, there's in the criminal code, harassment is specifically stated, and there's a definition of it. Why do the police say that what you're experiencing doesn't fall under the Harassment Act?
Well, thank you for asking that. I, of course, don't know the hearts and minds of the police, but I've been through every bit of legislation pertaining to our situation, and it is there, from harassment to following vehicles around a horse on the road. That's a provincial bylaw or law violation. There seems to be an unwillingness by the police to pursue it. And probably my best guess is they don't want to take on, a charter challenge, that sort of thing. I don't know. They don't want to make it worse. But in the meantime, their unwillingness, their inactivity to actually do anything has given our activists sort of it's widened their agenda, and it's given them sort of the feeling that they can keep moving forward with their agenda.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off there, because I want to ask Anita a question as well, but I appreciate your response, and to all the speakers, I really appreciate you being here, because we do need to figure this bill out and get it right. And so my next question is for Anita. If this bill is passed, will your group or other groups be launching a constitutional challenge of the bill?
Absolutely. We will work with lawyers at Animal Justice and my own vegan lawyers, Gary Grill, James Silver. In the United States, these types of bills were defeated on constitutional grounds. I think the same thing will happen here. I think the existing laws are in place and they can handle any cases that arise.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Are there
John, did
any
you-
further questions from the official opposition? MPP Vanthof, you have the floor.
Just a quick question to Laura. Under Bill 156, it goes into fairly detail on citizen's arrest, and that after you make a citizen's arrest, then you contact the police. Would you be comfortable with making a citizen's arrest, or would any of your employees be comfortable with making a citizen's arrest?
Absolutely not. The people that we are dealing with quite often carry handcuffs, and who knows what else. We have been warned that we have to stay away, that we cannot antagonize. We have sort of, in a weird roundabout sense, been the problem in looking for justice and equality. That is absolutely. Would you have your 20-year-old daughter try to do a citizen's arrest on some 40-year-old guy with handcuffs and who knows, maybe a knife or a stun gun? Absolutely not. This is why I do respect their right to express their feelings. We just need distance, a bit of a buffer zone so they can be over there expressing their feelings and their thoughts, and we can be safe doing what we do, running our business. Our drivers should be safe. Our horses should be safe. The public should be safe. They can feel and think and say what they want. We just need some space. We need a barrier that honestly I think would work in beautifully as an animal protection zone. That's all we're asking for. I'm not looking to shut down anybody's opinions, but I don't want ours shut down. I don't want our rights shut down. And I'm tired of my people, us, my family, myself. I've had death threats, for goodness sake. I am tired of us living with this. It's always there. It never goes away. It subsides and then it's back. This is no way to have to conduct a business in Ontario, Canada in 2020. Thank you.
No further questions.
Seeing no questions from the official opposition, we'll now turn to the government side. Who would like to begin? Sorry, MPP Schreiner, you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Oh, I thought it was coming back to me, but it's going a different way back.
So my understanding, MPP Schreiner, is that in each round, there is 6.5 minutes for the independent member, and then there are 16 minutes for the official opposition and government,
Okay,
and those 16
gotcha.
minutes are divided into 2 groups of 8. Thank you. We'll turn now to the government side. Oh, MPP Pettipies, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank all the participants who have come and taken the time to give their deputations today. It's quite interesting to listen to all the different opinions and that we've heard, and it's certainly interesting to think about just exactly how this has affected those in the animal industry in Ontario and those who aren't in the animal industry in Ontario. I'd like to ask Ms. Fraser a question, if I could, Chair. Ms. Fraser, you used the term industrial and private farming. Could you give me a definition of what you mean by industrial and private farming?
Sure. So, as best as I understand, you have the bigger production centers, like the one that I guess I've had a chance to view from the outside, Maple Lodge Farm. That's what I would think of as an industrial setting. And then I'm aware that there may be other private farmers out there. But within these industrial settings, I guess what I'm thinking of is a large number of employees. When I say industrial, like it's not the image that the old-fashioned, grassy fields that people often imagine a farm to be. Does that make sense?
I guess, most of pretty well all the farms in Ontario, no matter what size they are owned by family farms, farm families. And so I was just trying to understand what you meant by industrial versus private.
So I guess I'm just thinking of like almost, I've been trying to avoid the term factory farms. But when I say industrial, what I'm really imagining are the factory farms.
Okay. Chair, may I ask Laura a question, please?
Yes, you may.
How long have you been in this business, Laura?
Approximately 27 years. My husband grew up in Niagara-on-the-Lake. He's been doing it since he was a teenager. I grew up in a condo in Toronto.
Okay. So you've been in, so all in all, 27 years would be a proper, appropriate term.
Right.
How long have you been experiencing these threats, as you call them?
It's been about 3 years now.
About 3 years.
Yeah.
About 3 years.
Yeah.
And are these threats continuing?
Yes. They come at us in different forms, in different ways, and different levels of intensity. But yeah, it's pretty continual. I mean, the statement I read to you at the beginning, that was from their Instagram post. I mean, who knows what they're planning? And that was last week, June 3rd. Who knows what they're planning? And you don't know. I know they really don't care about the well-being of our horses. They certainly don't care about our well-being. I mean, over and over again, they've said and in person and in writing that, they want to get rid of us. They want us gone. Our horses would be better off going to slaughter. That's our reality, and that's what we live with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, obviously, we haven't been out because of the quarantine, but I dread going back out there. Who knows what they've got planned?
Yes, I can understand. Through your chair, the COVID crisis certainly has not been good to your business. Or a lot of other businesses in Ontario, and you've got a lot of stress that way. I can certainly understand that. But certainly, when you're facing people who threaten you one way or the other, or your employees, it certainly doesn't make life any easier. So I want to thank you for your comments today, and I would like to pass on Mike to the member chair.
Further questions? MPP Barrett, you have the floor. You have to unmute yourself, MPP Barrett. No, we still cannot hear you.
Here we go again.
There we go.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to continue my original question, and I know the deputant, we ran out of time. Again, this striking of balance that's been talked about so far this morning. We have the existing Trespass to Property Act. We get complaints because it isn't successfully dealing with some of these cases of trespassing. Secondly, and fairly recent legislation that has passed, the PAWS legislation, the Provincial Animal Welfare Services Act, which has brought in some of the toughest animal welfare protection legislation anywhere. Now we're discussing on committee the newly introduced legislation. And again, and I apologize, I'm not sure who started to answer the question, but what kind of balance are we seeing? We're now dealing with essentially 3 pieces of legislation that address some of the controversies and conflicts we're talking about this morning.
MPP Barrett, who was your question directed towards?
Whoever started to answer the last time, and I just opened it up to the witness table.
Would any
Whoever
of the...
would like to address it.
Thank you. If any of the presenters would like to respond, please raise your hand. Laura, I see your hand raised.
Hi. Yes, I believe we all need balance. I mean, but it has to be in a way that farmers and people within agriculture can protect their animals and their livelihood. In my experience,
There's 1 minute left.
There's so much misinformation out there.
Can I speak after?
We need balance. In our case, we need distance, and farmers and their herds and flocks, they need protected. Thank you.
Janet,
Yeah.
you have 40 seconds.
Sure. Just quickly, I was the one speaking earlier. So I'm not so familiar with all the legislation, but I imagine that PAWS is more intended for pets, like dogs and cats, versus farm animals. And I still think that may be where the missing link is. Protections for farm animals.